I am going to go ahead and get us started today. So hello and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I'm Teresa Lyson with NICC Business and Community Solutions. Today's topic is managing the fixer, how to build accountability instead of dependence with Honor Jensen. Many leaders start their careers by being the person who gets things done. Then one day they discover that being the answer to every problem is exhausting and limits the growth of the people around them. Honor Jensen helps leaders make that shift. As a business and executive coach, she helps leaders build accountable teams, strengthen performance, and create organizations that can succeed without everything depending on them. Whether she's coaching a CEO, facilitating strategic planning, developing leaders, or helping business owners scale their companies, Honor serves as a trusted partner who helps people move from where they are to where they want to be. With more than 25 years of leadership and executive experience, Honor combines practical business expertise with a coach approach that empowers people to think more clearly, take ownership, and lead with confidence. In today's session, Managing the Fixer, How to Build Accountability Instead of Dependence, Honor will share practical strategies leaders can use immediately to empower others, strengthen ownership, and create lasting results. If you have any questions throughout the presentation today, or if there's any interaction, please drop that in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. And we'll save time at the end of the session to answer those questions. So today I welcome Honor.
Right. Well, thank you for having me, everybody, taking this time out of your day to invest in yourself, but also into your team. What we're going to talk about, obviously, is managing the fixer. And in addition to growing capability, this is all about building accountability, engagement, and getting your freedom back. So as we do this, I want to share a story about, my friend Angela. So not really her, that's where the asterisk is. But Angela was an incredibly high achiever and team player. She was always willing to help out and get things done that needed to be done. She was proactive, never needed anybody to tell her what to do. And because of all this, she sort of inspired everybody else to do the same thing. While, like many of us who fill in this space, Angela got promoted. She got promoted quite quickly and became a leader. And she thought this would be great. Finally, I get the recognition that I want. But what happened was it wasn't what Angela thought it would be. She started to work really, really, really hard and get bogged down. What happened later on, we found out, is she got a lot of complaints from the people that worked for her that said, you know what, Angela's kind of a micromanager. She was great before she was our leader, but now I don't really like this. So what happened? Well, Angela came to me and she's like, Honor, I just don't get it. All these people, they're working from home and I never ask them if they're logged in or all of those things that we hear horror stories about. I never check on their work. I never second guess them. I don't watch over them or correct their behaviors. I'm a pretty good leader. So we're like, okay, what could the problem be? So working with Angela a little bit more, we dug into it and we found that she fell into three leadership traps. First of all, her team was becoming overly dependent on her. So they would come to her with questions over and over and over again. And she had the answers. She's like, hey, all they are doing is asking questions. I have answers for them. That wasn't a problem, was it? Well, what had happened was it created a huge bottleneck. And the team wasn't able to move forward without Angela's involvement. And that's because, or later, she was found that she couldn't ever disconnect from work because people always needed her. And she felt, I always have to be available. This led to falling into the grind or the overwhelm. She started to feel burned out, not because of the job itself, but because she seemed to be doing everybody's work for them. Her own work seemed to be something that she would do in her spare time, in the evenings or the weekend. And I'm wondering, you drop it in the chat, does this ever feel like you? So she was carrying too much of most of the stuff she didn't need to carry. It wasn't her stuff anymore. And all of this stuff led her to feeling resigned or disengaged from the purpose of her job, the purpose and meaning of the organization, and the strategic piece of her work. And this was where the fixer started to rear its evil head. So the fixer is this mindset that leads you to do all three of those things. And yeah, so many people feel that same way. So meet the fixer. He's kind of cute, right? And the idea here is the fixer really means well. I mean, raise your hand if you think helping people is a good thing. I know I do. Helping people is good. And the fixer is there because it wants to help people. It wants to help other people succeed. It wants to solve problems. That's just sort of our human nature. But when the fixer goes overboard is when it starts to become a problem. So I think it's important to know, when is the fixer good? Ultimately, in an emergency situation, we don't want to take time and have conversations. We need somebody to get in there and take action. And even if it's not a true emergency, but we need a quick decision, that fixer is really very helpful. This example might be that you're with a client and your employee's like, hey, I don't know what to do, and they need you. It's not like you have time, and or is it appropriate to have the conversation in front of that client? So a quick decision might be important. So even in an emergency or a quick decision, it's a great idea to circle back afterwards and have more of a coaching conversation so that you can prevent it from being an emergency in the future, or equip them to make the decision in that space. The other time the fixer means well or is useful is when it's information exchange. Hey, do you know where this thing is? Do you know where the bathroom is? Great, we can find that. Or it's transactional. Hey, this is $25. Great. Or if I take care of this for you, will you take care of this for me? No problem. So the fixer, you can see, isn't so bad. It means well, and it really is a good thing when it's not overutilized. But if it is overutilized, it often creates some problems. And the first problem we might see it create is that great dependence on you. So remember these traps, these are going to feel very similar. So they come to you instead of solving the problems by themselves. They also when they do that, sorry, it decreases accountability. So back to my friend Angela, people would come to her and say, "Hey, I need some help on this. Would you help me?" And she would say, "Sure," instead of challenging them. Or, "Hey, I need your advice." She would give the advice. So pretty soon it's because, or it's her advice that they're receiving. They don't own the answer. They don't own the solution. It's not theirs. And so if something goes wrong, not my problem, it's Angela. All of this also starts to decrease the level of trust on your team. They stop believing that you trust them. And the truth is, this is what happened to Angela. People would ask her questions, and she's like, why do they keep asking me these questions? They should know the answer. This is their job. Why do they want my advice all the time? This is their job. And she started to believe that they're incompetent. Guess what? They also started to believe that they're incompetent. So this trust level goes down. And because their opinions aren't really used as often, and Angela has to make all the decisions, the level of engagement on the team decreases as well. So they stop bringing their best. They stop adding their discretionary effort. And when all of this happens, bad things happen, which is profitability decreases. And we'll get into some of that when we talk about when the fixer is alleviated. So the thing I want you to remember with this slide is this: helping is not about rescuing. Sorry about that. But you might be telling me, you know what, Honor? Isn't it true that what was my expertise, my ability to answer questions and solve problems, isn't that what made me a leader in the first place? And I would say the answer is yeah, it probably is. But what got you here isn't going to get you where you want to go next. You need to stop answering all the problems that you used to answer and provide all the advice you used to provide, and let your team do that. Now you have a different set of solutions that you need to create. You have a strategy that you're trying to execute. So your role now is to lead, not to rescue anyone. So how do you do that? Number one is to take a look at your mindset. Number two is your focus, and three is your words. So this is the frame there framework that we'll go through to help you tame that fixer. So let's start. Well, any questions before I jump into those solutions, just drop them into the chat. Did anything come up, Teresa?
No.
No. Okay, good. So taming the fixer, let's start with the mindset. So the mindset here is all about how you approach things. So taking a coach approach to leadership is going to help your fixer get under control. And this means to think about your team as already whole, resourceful, and capable. When we talk about whole, they're not broken, they're not missing anything. You hired these people, or they were hired, maybe you inherited them, because you thought, or the organization thought, that they could do the job and they had a lot of potential to grow within it. So this is the mindset you need to remember as you approach them. The other thing is that they're resourceful. They can solve problems. They can figure things out as they go. And they're also capable of applying the resources that they can figure out on their own. Your role then is to think about yourself as a guide, not the hero. So helping them use what they have in order to solve their problems and to create solutions and new ideas. So that's the mindset. The next piece then is to address your focus. So as a coach, your idea is to think about the person, not the problem. So instead of focusing on what happened, what have you already tried, what options are you considering, raise a hand. How many people think about these questions when they're solving problems? These are great. However, they're focused on the problem, not the person. So when you're thinking about the focus of the person, you want to ask yourself, what really matters to this person? What do they want? What are they thinking? What are the challenges that they're experiencing within the framework of the problem? What is their perspective? Because your perspective is going to be very different. And when you're focused on the solution, you never really learn what their perspective is. When you focus on the person, they are free to focus on the solution. So then, great leaders build a partnership, not a hierarchy. So when someone comes to you with a question or has a problem or wants some advice, immediately we run to, I know the answer. I'm an expert. I have all kinds of ideas. But instead, it's a partnership, not to have the answers, but to draw the answers out of them, and or if nobody really knows, to co-create those solutions together. And we do this by making sure that the person we're talking with or our teammate is feeling heard and understood. They're also feeling challenged and supported, not like all off on their own. And when we do this with our focus, we start to build confidence and competence. And we also start to build trust and ownership. Which leads us then to the third part of how do we manage the fixer? And that is the words. So the words we use are framed up as questions and reflections. So again, we're starting with, hey, they're already whole, resourceful, competent. I'm not the hero, I'm the guide. And we're also thinking, okay, put my focus on the person, not the problem. So when someone comes into your office and says, hey, I have a question, or I have a problem, instead of saying, what's the problem? You might want to back up and say, well, what's on your mind? Now, this focuses on what they're thinking instead of what is the problem, is focusing on the problem. Another great thing to ask them is, and what else? Or tell me more, to get the whole picture of what they're thinking. If you think about an iceberg, right, it's mostly under the water or the surface of the water, right? So when you first ask a question, they're going to tell you the things above the surface. But when you start asking, and what else? Or tell me more, they're going to open up into helping you see what's below the surface. Another thing after you ask what's on your mind is to reflect back. Oh, okay. So what I hear you saying is, and then you can reflect what you heard. Now, make sure you own the what I hear you saying instead of what you are saying, because you might have heard it wrong. And if you say, I hear you saying this. It opens the door to say, well, that's not really what I meant. And then they might clarify it for you. So once you know what's on their mind, the next question is, well, what's the real challenge for you here? Because you might understand, okay, now I kind of know what the problem is, but what's the challenge for them in this problem? So then, keep asking, and what else? Or tell me more. Here's a clue. You don't there's really no way to ask and what else too many times. Once they say, well, oh my gosh, there is nothing else, quit asking me, then you know that there's nothing else. So congratulations, you can move on. It's not weird. It might sound weird in theory, but in practice, it's like, well, there's nothing else. Okay, good. Now, what do you want? That's the next question. Because a lot of times we think we jump right into the answer. Okay, so if that's the challenge, I'm going to help you solve it. And we start thinking about the problem instead of the solution. When you ask what they want, now you're solving from their perspective what is really important to them. So here's what that might look in action. So, hey, what's on your mind? Okay, I hear what you're saying. Is this correct? Yes. What's the real challenge for you here? Oh, so this is the challenge. And what do you want? All right. So if this is what you want, then you can start asking a question like, how can I help? So don't just deliver it, ask them how they can help. Because you might think, oh, Sally has a problem with Bob, and Bob keeps interrupting her workflow, and that's why Sally isn't getting this project done. And so she comes to you and says, my project is running late. What's the real challenge? Well, Bob keeps throwing things at me. All right, let's say Bob is another leader. What do you want? She might not want to be told, or she might not want me to tell Bob to knock it off. She might actually want more time from me. So when I start solving problems without really understanding what they want and then how they want me to help, I might actually solve a problem that doesn't exist and creates more problems. And that's where the fixer is starting to take over again. So, how can I help is the question to get around that before you jump into it. So, I'll just pause for a second. Any thoughts or questions as you think about these 3 steps to helping tame this advice monster? Okay, so that's good. So the next thing I want to point out is when we're listening, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? Double the listening over the speaking. What we want to do is not listen for what the problem is. We want to listen to understand the person and where they're coming at from the situation. So, in order to do that and to demonstrate that we are listening to the person and hearing the person, that's where the reflections come in. What I hear you saying is, do I have that right? You can also mirror exactly what they said, although if you do that too often, it gets a little awkward. So reflect what you heard, not as though it's true, but own it. This is what I heard you say. A reflection does 2 things. It gives them insight into what they're saying themselves. So have you ever been in a situation where you're like, oh, I'm thinking out loud? Of course, we all like to think out loud. As a leader in this space, you're giving them the space to think out loud. And when you reflect back to them and they can hear their thoughts, oftentimes they will correct what they said. So the other thing reflections do is send a message to them. I understand, I care, and I empathize, and I want to give you the space. It takes away the sense of judgment. So what happens when you do tame the fixer? Great things. Number 1, for you as a leader, that overwhelm starts to be decreased and it allows more capacity for you to do your leader role or the role that you're actually hired to do and less time doing the work for the people who report to you. Incidentally, you can use this managing the fixer when you're talking with peer leaders or even leaders above you in your organization because you don't want to be the doormat either. It also helps for your teams. It adds ownership and accountability because it's their idea and they own it. And we feel good and we own when we own things and we're more likely to follow through and make sure that we address other problems as well so that the issue doesn't come back towards us. The other thing it does is for organizations, it increases your employee engagement. There are studies, so many studies over the decades that show that better employee engagement creates better longevity for an organization, more resilience through economic and other social down and upturns. And also the profitability for an organization is always higher when they have a high level of engagement. And it also creates better results. I'm just reading. Brianna says, I've been trying to do this more by saying so. What do you need from me? And try to have them figure out a solution. And it's great. It's so great. It makes such a big difference. So that is the result when you tame the fixer. The organizations with a high level of employee engagement, because you're not fixing everything, it's not your ideas all the time coming to the surface. It's this collective intelligence throughout the entire organization. Your profitability increases as well. And it's so much more fun to come to work. So what do we do with this? I believe that Teresa or Sarah had sent you an email with a guide or a little worksheet here. And I'm going to lead you into my coach challenge. So how do you apply this? Mindset, focus, and words. My challenge to you is every day for the next 7 days or even 14 days is to start your day and maybe even your afternoon with this mindset exercise. And all that is to remind yourself they are already whole, they're already resourceful, and they're already capable. I don't need to fix anybody, and I don't need to fix anything. And then remind yourself also that you're not the hero, you are the guide. Your employees are the hero. Do that twice a day because the mindset is really important so that you've adopted the habit of this mindset before someone comes in and says, hey, I have a problem. Can you help me? The second piece is the focus, and you can add this into the mindset exercise. I'm going to focus on the person, not the problem. But also, when someone comes in and asks you for some advice or a question, or you see that they need some help, remember to focus on the person, not the problem. And you can even tell yourself that. I'm going to focus on the person, not the problem. And then use your words. Ask open-ended questions. Those are the ones that can't be answered with a one-word answer. But also make sure that your questions aren't leading questions. Leading questions are the ones, well, have you tried this? Yes, it's a closed question, but also it's a leading question. When you say that, that means, or they take that as you are going to offer advice. Try this is how they hear it. So don't ask leading questions and make sure that they're open-ended. And then the words also use your reflections. Again, when you're reflecting back on the person, not the problem. So I hear you saying this. It sounds like, or it seems like you feel this. I hear that you want this. So you're looking at those kinds of things, not, oh, so I hear the problem is this. That's not what you're looking for. Make sense? I feel many people work as a fixer because it feels faster in the moment and not realizing that over time, you will spend more time fixing than you would have spent coaching and supporting ownership. Sydney, I love this. And this is why I have worked with so many people where I would ask these questions. What's on your mind? What's the real challenge for you? What do you want? How can I help? And when I get to the how can I help, a lot of times they'll say, you already did. I just needed space to think this through. I think I know what I'm going to do now. That's wonderful. When that happens, you've saved so much time because you haven't tried to solve a problem that didn't exist. They already own it. So you don't have to go back later and hold them accountable because they're going to be accountable in it. And so it's just a lot more fun as well. What I would add when that happens is to ask them, so what are you going to do? Or what's your next step? And then follow up with them because that's also where the accountability comes in. Not did you do it, but how did it go? It shows that you care. That's really good. So how do you know that this conversation was not a fixer conversation, but more of a coaching approach? And it's to ask yourself this, did I create more dependence or did I create ownership? And you know by when they walk away, whose idea did they walk away with? Whose call to action are they following? Is it yours or is it theirs? Do they feel more engaged or not? And of course, it's a good thing to ask for feedback on later. So that is your coach challenge. And if that is in that worksheet as well. So if the fixer took over, you can always circle back. I want you to know that it's okay. You're used to the fixer taking over. It's going to take some time. In fact, your team might be like, what's going on? I'm used to the fixer. So if your fixer does take over, always go back and say, hey, how did it go? What did you learn from this? And keep asking questions from the context of the person. And that's really all I have. So, a couple of comments coming in. I love these comments. Let's see. As an employee on the team who comes up to the manager looking for help, should I ask myself, do I really need to go looking for help right now before I go to their office? I think sometimes we aren't looking to be fixed. We just need someone to hear us. What a great question, Michaela. So I think it's a great thing as a leader, if this is somebody, what you can ask is, do you want just to vent, or do you want to just like work this out, or do you really want my advice? What do you want from me? And that's where how can I help comes in. But Michaela, if this is you, here's a great thing to say is, hey, I have a challenge, and really what I need from you is just to hear me out and help me process it. And tell your leader tell your leader this up front. It's a really good way to coach your leader. So I hope that addressed this. Are the slides supposed to be advancing, Miriam? You're on the coach challenge. So if that's where you are, then you're in the right spot. Let's see. Have I missed any others here? I feel
It
like
looks
many
like
people.
Andrea's comment you might have missed. What are your
Andrea.
suggestions when
Oh,
you have quite a few new employees?
what was the rest of it? Sorry, it just moved.
Yep. Sometimes it can be difficult not to be the fixer when they're still learning.
Oh, yeah. So there's always a difference, right? There is a stage in which they are learning. And then, of course, the fixer is probably important, but taking a coach approach will tell you or will help you ask the questions and find out where they already are. So if you're training them, this is how to find the report, this is how to do this. You don't need to necessarily coach them. There's the training phase. But more and more, you want to ask them, hey, how is it going? And you might say, hey, what's on your mind today? What's a challenge for you today? And you can always focus on the person, not the problem, in this approach, and always think that they're whole. And then they will tell you when they need help. So, with a lot of new people, there's that training phase, and then there's the coaching phase. And sometimes you have to toggle between the two, especially if you're hiring people who are probably pretty competent in what they are doing. So I hope that answers it. If not, come back to that question. What else came in? So maybe just be straightforward going in that I'm not looking. Yes, absolutely, Michaela. Just say, I'm not looking for your help here. I just need a space to process this. And they will be happy to do that. Hopefully, happy to do that for you. Courtney, can you provide some good phrases to use when someone you've worked with towards ownership continues to lack confidence and is always operating from a space of fight or flight? Even small obstacles are made to seem large, regardless of the direction being successful during the interaction. The next thing that happens is the next thing that happens treated the same way. So good phrases to use when someone you've worked with towards ownership continues to lack confidence. I think that one of the best questions to ask is, what's the real challenge for you here? When they lack confidence, it's because they're challenged with something that they've never faced before. And then you can find out, how can I help you? So I know I've used these questions already, but honestly, they're really good questions to use because they will guide you and you can trust them to guide you. Now, they might need to build trust, especially if this is something that they're not used to. You might have this as your style, but they probably came from a background that damaged their confidence over time. So you need to give them little wins, little wins, little wins. So ask them what they're comfortable with. Ask them, some kinds of transactional questions like, um, uh, what kind of training do you need? Or what resources can I help you find? You can ask those. It might be more of a training situation, or they might really need your guidance. But then the next question would be to use this coach approach after the fact. So you taught them what to do. Now you can ask them, what did you learn? How did that pan out? How can we apply that the next time? And that's helping them through the learning process. So good phrases when somebody has worked towards ownership. I think that's probably a really good place to start. Again, this is really broad. So if you'd like to talk through it offline, I'm happy to do that. Hopefully that answered some questions. I know we're up
Under
against
there's
time.
Yeah, there's
Go
one
ahead.
more that was dropped in the
Oh,
Q&A box. So I'm not sure that you see that, but it says, I think I'll want to know what to do if I'm the recipient of the fixer. This is tremendous advice if I am the fixer, and I'd love to have them listen to this, but curious what advice you have if your leader is not grounded in this.
it's not that they're a bad leader, right? And I think I forgot who said it. Maybe Michaela said it initially, and that is this: um, tell them what you need. I'm here. I don't really want your advice right now. What I need is a space to think this through. Um, just tell them what you need up front and help them, and then give them feedback. Now, this does require a good amount of trust, um, but you can develop that over time. So I really just need your input here. I don't need your input. I just need a space to think this through. And or if it's kind of a micromanager and it really is a leader that doesn't that intentionally uses the fixer on everything, maybe then you need a different space to process. So I hope that helps. We can talk about that. How do you get administration to change their fix it mindset? You can't change people. That's the answer. I'm sorry, but you can't change people. But you can coach them and tell them what you need. Tell them what you're looking for. I have a challenge. What I need from you is this. And just be very clear. I don't need that. Or I'm asking you permission. I'm not asking you for your advice. And just be clear on what they want, what you want from them. Some of us like to be guides, but that can be frowned upon and discouraged. Um, yeah, I'm not really sure the context of that, other than if it's the administration that's um, asking you to fix things. So hopefully that answered it. I'm not sure that I understood the whole thing, but I think I did. If not, let me know.
All right, we've got lots of great questions today. I have one more for you if you guys want to
Okay.
hold on. You did have a poll just pop up on your screen. Please take a minute to answer that for us, just to help us guide us in our development of these instructor webinars going forward. So one more question. If you have been the fixer, how do you transition to this so your team is not taken aback by such a big switch?
Mm, yeah, sometimes you go in slow. I would say if you're really going to try to build the habit, you want your team to reinforce it for you. So my suggestion would be this: tell them, I realize that my fixer is really strong and I seem to be solving problems that you don't really need me to solve. So what I'm going to try to do is take a coach approach. This is so you're going to see a change in me. Just tell them that and then do it. So I only hesitate to say take that approach if you're not going to try to build the habit and ask them for more feedback. How did we do? Do you feel like it's your answer? Do you feel like I keep, using the fixer? Give me feedback when it does. So involve them in your journey. That's what I would say. And then be consistent. What you do consistently and predictably is how people experience you. If you tell them you're going to do this and then you don't do it, or you don't really make the effort to do it, you don't have to be perfect. It's going to be like, oh, well, I don't believe her. And that will actually decrease the trust. So tell them and then just really, really, really be consistent. If you're a little uncomfortable about telling them, the last thing I would say is do it consistently and then watch their feedback. And if their face is like, holy crap, this is weird, I don't get it, um, then you can acknowledge it. It looks like you're a little surprised at my response. So you're focused on the person and their process. And then we're like, yeah, you usually tell me what to do. Yeah, I'm really sorry about that. I think you have the answer here. Let's explore that together. So hopefully that helps.
Very good. I think we got through all the questions that have been put up. So thank you everyone for your time today. And thank you, Honor, for sharing your thoughtful conversation on being the fixer and getting out of that phase. So we have lots of thank yous popping up right now. And so going forward, if you want some more information from Honor, please reach out to myself or any of our staff. You will receive some of my contact information in a follow-up email coming to you probably tomorrow. And we are going to be taking a break from our instructor webinars in July and August. So we will be back in September with a continued series of these webinars for you. So thank you very much. Enjoy your summer and have a good week. Thanks, Honor.
Thank you.